The field looked harmless from a distance, just a stretch of open ground outside the Belgian village of Zels on the grey morning of December 24th, 1944. Frost clung to the grass. Bare trees stood motionless in the cold. A narrow road cut across the hillside and disappeared into a shallow valley. To a British tank commander in a fast-moving Cromwell, it seemed like the quickest way forward. But high above that valley, hidden behind snow-dusted brush and broken stone walls, a far heavier machine was already waiting. Its long 88mm gun was aimed downhill. Its engine idled quietly. Its crew had not moved for nearly an hour.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.
And when the British tank crossed into the open, the German Tiger II needed only one shot. In that instant, speed meant nothing. Armor meant little. And one of Britain's finest cruiser tanks found itself staring at one of the most feared weapons of the entire war. You can almost feel the silence inside the Cromwell. The commander scanning through his cupola, the gunner adjusting his sight, the driver pushing forward across frozen earth. None of them can see what is above them. None of them know that several tons of German steel are already tracking their every movement. Then a flash erupts from the ridge. The shell is already on its way, and the race across open ground becomes a fight for survival. To understand why this moment was so dangerous, you have to understand the two machines involved. The British Cromwell tank was one of the fastest Allied tanks in Europe. Powered by the powerful Rolls-Royce Meteor engine, derived from the Merlin aircraft engine, it could reach speeds of over 40 miles per hour on roads. British crews admired its reliability, acceleration, and ability to maneuver quickly across rough terrain. It was not the heaviest tank on the battlefield, but it was agile and responsive. In skilled hands, that speed could be deadly. The German Tiger II was the opposite. Massive and intimidating, it weighed nearly 70 tons. Its frontal armor was extraordinarily thick, and its 8.8 centimeter KWK-43L/71 gun was among the most powerful tank guns of the war. From long range, it could destroy nearly any Allied tank before the enemy could even get close enough to return effective fire. One tank relied on speed. The other relied on overwhelming firepower. When they met on open ground, every second mattered. The story begins during the Battle of the Bulge and the last major German offensive in the West. On December 16, 1944, German forces launched a surprise attack through the Ardennes forest in Belgium and Luxembourg. Dense woods, poor weather, and narrow roads initially favored the attackers. British forces, including elements of the British 29th Armoured Brigade and the 11th Armoured Division, were rushed south to help block the German advance. Among the British tanks moving into the region were Cromwells. Their crews were experienced, many having fought through Normandy, across France, and into Belgium. They trusted their machines. They knew the Cromwell was not invincible, but they also knew how to use speed and aggressive maneuvering to gain an advantage. The German units they faced included elements of the 2nd Panzer Division, which had pushed farther west than many expected. And supporting some German formations were small numbers of Tiger II tanks from heavy tank battalions, including vehicles of Schwerpanzerabteilung 506. These were not common tanks. There were never enough of them. But when one appeared, every Allied crew took notice. On the night of December 23rd, weather conditions improved. Allied fighter bombers attacked German columns trapped on crowded roads. Fuel shortages worsened. The German offensive began to slow. Yet on the ground, the fighting remained brutal. Near Zels, German armored vehicles occupied defensive positions on high ground and along narrow roads. The terrain was deceptive. Rolling hills and small valleys created excellent ambush locations. A tank, hidden above a slope, could remain nearly invisible until the moment it fired. And that is where our story unfolds. Though at first light on December 24th, British armored reconnaissance pushed forward cautiously. Frost covered the fields. The sky was pale and colorless. Engines echoed in the cold air. Tracks crunched over frozen mud. Captain John Meredith, a fictionalized but representative British troop leader, based on accounts from British armored officers, stood in the turret of his Cromwell and studied the terrain ahead. His squadron had orders to probe towards cells and locate German armor believed to be withdrawing. The open field in front of him looked dangerous, but manageable. There were hedgerows to the left, a shallow ditch to the right, and a ridgeline beyond the valley. What Meredith could not see was a Tiger II position just below the crest. Inside the German tank, Oberleutnant Karl Fischer and his crew waited in near silence. For their machine was enormous, but concealment and patience gave them the advantage. The gunner had already measured likely ranges. The commander observed through his optics. The loader stood ready with armor-piercing ammunition. They had one goal: let the British move into the open, then fire before the enemy could react. The Tiger II's 88mm gun was devastating. Its armor-piercing shell left the barrel at extremely high velocity. At normal combat distances, the shot was fast, flat, and deadly. Against a Cromwell, whose armor was relatively modest, a direct hit would likely penetrate with catastrophic results. The Cromwell, armed in many cases with the British 75mm gun, could be effective against medium tanks and anti-tank positions. But against the thick frontal armor of a Tiger II, especially at long range, the British crew faced grim odds. The best hope was to flank the heavy tank or call for support. But first, they had to survive the opening shot. Meredith's driver increased speed as the tank rolled into the valley. The Meteor engine roared confidently. The suspension bounced over uneven ground. Inside the turret, the gunner scanned the ridge through his sight. Nothing. No movement. No muzzle flash. No obvious threat. You can almost feel the false sense of security. The field is open, but quiet. The tank is moving quickly. Perhaps the Germans have already retreated. Perhaps the road ahead is clear. Then the German commander gives a short order. Fire. The Tiger II's gun recoils violently. A sheet of flame bursts from the muzzle. The 88mm shell streaks downhill. Inside the Cromwell, there is barely time to register the flash, and the impact slams into the front left side of the British tank with overwhelming force. Steel tears apart. Fragments ricochet through the fighting compartment. Radios fail. Smoke fills the turret. The driver is wounded. The tank veers sharply. For one terrible second, no one knows if they are still alive. Meredith shouts for reverse. The driver, half-stunned, fights to respond. The Cromwell lurches backward toward the slight cover of the ditch. Another shell is already being loaded above them on the ridge. The loader in the Tiger II moves quickly, despite the weight of the large round. The breach closes. The gunner recenters the sight. The British tank is damaged, but not yet destroyed. Fischer does not intend to let it escape. Fire. The second shell crashes into the ground just behind the retreating Cromwell, throwing frozen dirt and stones over the hull. The near miss shakes the tank, but buys the British crew a few precious seconds. Meredith orders smoke. White clouds pour into the valley. The damaged Cromwell disappears behind the screen and drops lower into cover. The Tiger II holds its fire. The target is gone. Inside the British tank, the crew checks one another quickly. The radio operator is bleeding from his face. The driver's left arm is injured. The gun breech still functions, but the turret traverse is sluggish. The tank can move. That alone feels like a miracle. Meredith now understands exactly what they are facing. Not a Panzer IV, not a self-propelled gun, a Tiger II, one of the most dangerous tanks in Europe. He radios the contact report to squadron headquarters. Heavy tank on ridge, long 88, request support. The nearby British units respond. Additional Cromwells spread out rather than charging directly across the open field. Sherman Fireflies, equipped with the powerful 17-pounder gun, are moved into position. Artillery observers prepare coordinates. The battlefield becomes a contest of patience and positioning. The Tiger II remains formidable, but it is also large and difficult to move quickly. Its commander knows Allied support will soon arrive. Remaining in the same position too long invites artillery fire and flanking attacks. Fisher weighs his options: stay and engage, or withdraw before the British surround him. He decides to hold. The next British tank appears cautiously along the hedgerow to the left. It is not fully exposed, only part of its turret is visible. The Tiger II fires, and the shell rips through the hedge and destroys the tank almost instantly. The power of the German gun is undeniable. Yet every shot also reveals the Tiger's position more clearly. British artillery begins to range in. The first rounds land short, then closer, then directly around the ridgeline. Explosions throw earth and tree branches into the air. Shock waves pound the heavy tank. Visibility worsens. Radio communications become difficult. Fisher orders a relocation. The Tiger II reverses slowly from its firing point. Its engine strains. Tracks grind over frozen ground. For all its power, the giant machine cannot move with the agility of lighter tanks. British observers notice. A Sherman Firefly commander, Lieutenant Robert Haynes, has been waiting behind a stone wall with a clear side-angle opening. Through his sight, he finally catches a glimpse of the withdrawing Tiger II. Not the heavily armored front, the side of the turret, a much better target. Haynes gives the order to fire. The 17-pounder gun erupts. The armor-piercing shot streaks across the valley and strikes the Tiger II's side armor near the turret ring. The impact is violent. Sparks burst outward. The German tank shudders. The damage is not immediately catastrophic, but something inside has been hit. The turret traverse slows. The commander's optics are damaged. The Tiger II is still alive, but no longer fully effective. Fisher realizes the situation is changing rapidly. Artillery is falling. Enemy anti-tank guns have the range, and his vehicle has been wounded. He orders a withdrawal towards Celles. The Tiger II turns slowly downhill, seeking cover among trees and buildings. But damaged systems and the immense weight of the tank reduce its speed. British armor begins to pursue cautiously, maintaining distance and coordinating movement. Meredith's battered Cromwell rejoins the advance from behind the ditch. Smoke stains its hull. Its crew is shaken, but determined. The tank that nearly killed them is now trying to escape. For the British crew, this is no longer just another engagement. It is personal. The pursuit moves through narrow roads bordered by stone houses and winter fields. German vehicles abandoned for lack of fuel line the route. Trucks, half-tracks, and damaged tanks stand silent in the snow. The German offensive is collapsing, but individual Tiger II tanks remain deadly until the very end. Near the outskirts of Celles, the damaged Tiger II attempts to maneuver through a constricted lane. The mud and debris slow the heavy vehicle. Mechanical stress increases. The transmission groans under the load. Then another 17-pounder round strikes. This time, the hit penetrates more decisively. Flames begin inside the engine compartment. The crew attempts emergency procedures. Fire extinguishers are activated. Hatches are opened. But the blaze spreads. Fisher gives the final order. Abandon tank. One by one, the crew escapes into the bitter December air and runs for cover. Moments later, internal ammunition ignites. The explosion is enormous. The turret jerks violently as smoke and flame billow above the village. The Tiger II, which only an hour earlier had dominated the valley from above, is now a burning wreck. Meredith's Cromwell halts at a safe distance. The British commander looks through his binoculars at the shattered heavy tank. He remembers the first impact, the smoke, and the realization that death had arrived without warning from the ridge. Now the danger is over. But the lesson remains. On paper, the Tiger II was vastly superior in armor and gunpowder. In a direct duel at long range from a prepared position, the Cromwell stood little chance. And yet battles are not won by specifications alone. Terrain matters, communication matters, combined arms matter, and crews who survive the first shot can still change the outcome. The Cromwell itself deserves special recognition. Often overshadowed by more famous tanks, it was a highly effective British design. Its speed allowed rapid exploitation and reconnaissance. The Meteor engine gave it excellent acceleration, and crews appreciated its responsiveness. While its armor and gun were limited compared with later heavy threats, the Cromwell excelled when used aggressively and intelligently. The Tiger II represented the peak of German heavy tank design. Its thick sloped armor and devastating gun inspired fear among Allied crews. But it was also expensive, mechanically demanding, and fuel-hungry. In the harsh conditions of late 1944, these weaknesses became increasingly severe. At the Battle of the Bulge, German armored units often lacked fuel and maintenance support. Even the most formidable tank could become vulnerable when isolated, damaged, or forced to maneuver under artillery attack. Near Celles, British and American forces trapped much of the German spearhead. By December 24th and 25th, the advance had stalled completely. Numerous German vehicles were destroyed or abandoned, including several heavy tanks. The defeat marked one of the clearest signs that the offensive had failed. For the men inside these tanks, however, the war was not about broad strategic maps. It was about moments. A commander spotting a flash on a ridge, a loader lifting another heavy shell, a driver trying to reverse with wounded hands, a gunner holding his breath before squeezing the trigger. In those moments, survival depended on training and discipline. British tank crews knew they were vulnerable to the 88mm gun. Many had seen Shermans and Cromwells destroyed in seconds. Yet they continued advancing, because hesitation could be just as deadly as enemy fire. German crews inside Tiger IIs carried their own burden. They operated machines of immense power, but they also understood how limited their numbers were. Every mechanical failure, every artillery strike, and every shortage of fuel reduced their chances of returning home. The duel between the Cromwell and Tiger II captures one of the central truths of armored warfare. No tank is invincible. A superior position can provide overwhelming advantage, as the Tiger II demonstrated from the ridge. But once the enemy adapts, coordinates support, and attacks from multiple angles, even the strongest armored vehicle can be defeated. You can almost imagine the battlefield after the fighting ends. Snow continues to fall lightly over the valley. The burned Tiger II still smolders near the village. The scarred Cromwell stands nearby, its crew exhausted but alive. Recovery teams move among wrecked vehicles. Medics treat the wounded, and for a brief moment the guns are silent. Captain Meredith climbs down from his turret and places a gloved hand on the battered armor that saved his crew. The steel is cold, torn, blackened by smoke. yet it endured long enough for them to escape. He looks toward the ridge where the first shot was fired. Had the shell struck a few inches differently, none of them would be standing there. That thought stays with tank crews long after the battle is over. History often remembers the Tiger II as a symbol of unmatched battlefield power. It was indeed one of the most formidable tanks ever built during the war. But history also remembers the crews who faced it. Men in faster, lighter tanks who crossed dangerous ground, absorbed devastating fire, and continued fighting. The Cromwell was not designed to overpower a Tiger II head-on. Its strength lay in mobility, rapid reaction, and the courage of the men inside it. And on that frozen Belgian morning, those qualities proved enough. The Tiger II fired first. It struck from the high ground. It nearly destroyed its target. But the battle did not end with the first shot. The damaged Cromwell survived. The British adapted. Support arrived. And the hunter became the hunted. That is the reality of armored warfare. Power matters. Position matters. But endurance, teamwork, and determination matter just as much. So the next time you see a photograph of a Cromwell tank, remember what its crews faced. They knew there were heavier tanks with thicker armor and deadlier guns waiting beyond the next hill. And they drove forward anyway, across open ground, into enemy fire, not because the odds were favorable, but because that was the mission. And on the slopes above Celles, in the bitter cold of December 1944, one British crew proved that surviving the first shot could change everything.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.